I want y'all to know there are two sign-up sheets going around. One is for the public hearing on ordinance 1166, and one is for all other business, including the resolution for the ballot measure, the moratorium, absolutely anything else, just so everyone knows. Sergeant, nice to see you. The other thing I want to let folks know is that during our workshop at 5:30, we got Zoom bombed with some pretty horrible stuff. And so we're taking some extra measures on Zoom tonight in terms of security and letting people in and when people can speak. So if we slow down a little bit, just want you to know that that is why. We do have guidelines in place that we follow for Zoom, and those include you have to use your real name and you have to turn your camera on when you speak. So we're hoping that that does not happen again. If it should happen again, we'll see what we need to do. So so just so you know, hopefully those folks have moved on to another town's meeting somewhere. It's no fun. Okay. All right, that having been said, I am going to call the Monday, August 5th, 2024 Lions Board of Trustees meeting to order. We have the roll call, please, Clerk Baskets.
Yes, Mayor Rogan.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
Present.
Trustee Henrik.
Yeah, can you see if we
I
can
don't know
unmute?
if he can.
You have to undo them.
Yeah, we'll unmute Trustee
Present.
Henrik and Trustee Bill. Thank you.
Trustee Browning.
Present.
Trustee Lowell.
Present.
Trustee Delman.
Present.
And Trustee Dodd.
Thank you. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Tonight, before we take a reflective moment of silence and before we do the land acknowledgement, I want to address a couple of things. I want to, first of all, give thanks to the entire community, to our Boulder County Sheriff's Office, Sergeant Sears, you guys, you all just did an exemplary job. I'm going to cry. I hope that's acceptable. To our firefighters, everybody really stood up and stood by to help in an incredibly trying time. I know that Victoria worked, I don't know that you slept for 3 days. I really don't. Mayor Pro Tem, you may not know this, and she's very humble, so I'm going to share it. She was here up all night Tuesday night. She went up to Summit Housing to talk to the folks up there about what they might expect and help them feel better. She was evacuated herself and still stood up for the community and helped the community. And then, as people were getting back up to Stone Canyon on Thursday, stood outside for 2 hours in the 95-degree heat, helping people get back to their homes. So there was just so much coordinated effort to keep our town safe. And I know all of us are so very grateful. So I would just like to remind everybody that we've been through something traumatic, and to give everybody you encounter just maybe a little bit more grace and patience over the next days and weeks as we all kind of come to terms with what's been going on. And so with that, I'm going to read the land acknowledgement, and then we'll take a reflective moment of silence. We must acknowledge with respect as non-native people that the land on which we stand, live, and learn is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. Thank you, everyone. That was a plan, but I'll take it. Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Trustee Browning?
Yes, I would like to move to amend the agenda to move the public hearing and second reading on ordinance 1166 up in the agenda until the point immediately prior to resolution 2024-62. Take up the public hearing and second reading first.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If we'll vote on the agenda as amended. And perhaps trustee Hamrick and trustee Lowe can voice vote tonight.
Aye.
Thank you, trustee Hamrick.
Aye.
Great,
Motion passes unanimously.
great, thank you. All right, so let's move on to audience business. If you did not hear the news, we got Zoom bombed during our workshop, so we're gonna do things a little bit differently this evening. Audience business, we will hear comments on everything except ordinance 1166. We have a public hearing on that. There's a sign-up sheet going around for that public hearing. So we're gonna do in the room first, then we're gonna do our remote folks. I will call on you by name, remote folks. The clerk will then ask you to unmute and turn on your camera. So if you, when your time comes, if you would like to speak, if you could raise your hand, that would be, raise your digital hand there, that would be great. How many people do we have signed up for audience business? Two, okay, great. So you'll get 4 minutes for audience business tonight. Please state your name and address for the record. We ask that you keep your topic related to town business and that you address the entire board. And last ask is no applause, please. If you'd like to signal support, do the old jazz hands, okay? All right. Okay, who's first?
First is Roger Flynn. He's followed by Gil Sparks.
Great, thank you.
I have just some proposed language to hand out. That should be enough. Hi, Mayor and Town Board, Roger Flynn, 1010 Steamboat Valley Road, and I just wanted to talk about the two resolutions 62 and 63. I proposed some word changes. I think they're confusing at best. There's double negatives and triple negatives. So on 62, for example, near the bottom, my proposals are starting at the bottom of near the first page. It says, on August 5th, the town passed the 5-acre vote rule amendment to exclude from the voting exemption. That's sort of a double negative. I think it's a lot easier just to say to include the voting requirement of the 5-acre rule. It's a lot cleaner than what's proposed. The sunset ordinance talks about 1166 contains a sunset of November 5th unless continued by a vote, but the proposed referendum for November doesn't even mention 1166. The voters aren't going to know what the heck you're talking about when you're talking about 1166, when the language in the referendum talks about a new ordinance. It's an amendment of an existing ordinance, which I hope will pass tonight. So I proposed some language there that just says in the third whereas after the sunset, the board continues to refer should adopted 1166, which amends the 5-acre rule to not exclude properties of less than 5 acres. It's really to include properties, because the referendum and the marks or the 1166 is sort of an exclusion of an exemption and stuff like that. So it's very confusing to begin with. I support 1166. I think the language of these two resolutions have to be changed. For example, in 63, it says in the middle of the whereas, the board also referred a question to the November 5th ballot whether the requirements of 1166 should continue. But again, in the referendum proposed for voting later tonight, there's no mention of 1166. How are people supposed to know what's going on if you're saying that voter referendum references an ordinance that you don't even list? And so I proposed at the bottom different language, which I think for the actual referendum, which references 1166, And instead of talking about the double negative of an exemption from an exemption, it just basically says it expands the 5 acre vote rule to include the 5 acre carve out properties. So I think, I know that the town attorney spent a lot of time on this, the town staff and members of the board, but I think with these amendments, it's going to make it a lot clearer for town residents. If you're going to reference an ordinance, you better talk about it, you better mention it. And double negatives, I think is going to be really hard for people to educate people in October, which is going to be an interesting enough election. So anyway, thank you for these hopefully small amendments that I don't think take away from the intent of what the town wants. I think it's going to make it a heck of a lot clearer for town voters. So thank you for considering those amendments. Thank you very much.
Reggie. Appreciate it. Who do we have next?
Next is Gil Sparks.
Mr. Sparks. Hello.
Good evening, all. Trustees, staff. I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to,
Name and address.
I'm sorry,
It's okay.
2169 Apple Valley Road, Lyons. Take a few minutes to express the thoughts of many in terms of the gratitude that we all feel to everybody who contributed to what happened over the weekend. Mayor, you mentioned Mayor Pro Tem Williams, but also I think we need to reach out to you and thank you for everything you did. I doubt that you slept any more than anybody else over the weekend. I know from what I saw, it was exemplary. So
Thank you.
the town staff, Victoria and the rest, we all owe you a deep gratitude. There were a lot of volunteers. The fire chief put out an exceptional letter. And there were a lot of volunteers he didn't have an opportunity to mention or thank. So those will go unthanked. But one thing I want to point out is the chief, fire chief, put out a call of items that the fire department would like for donations. When that call went out, the library was selected as a central collection point. And over the next couple of 3 days, we delivered 6 to 7 truckloads of items to the fire district. I have no idea of thanking all of those people who went out and bought new stuff that delivered. I got a call this evening, there's yet another load to be picked up. So I'm gonna be going over there tomorrow to get that. So I just want, many people need to be thanked for the efforts that went on. Switching gears, the Lions Community Foundation opened its annual grant program on August 1st. It closes on August 6th. So if you all know folks who would be interested in applying for grant, now's the time. The fire district has applied and received grant funds from us before. The town has applied and received grant funds before. Wednesday night at the library will be a grant application training that is being sponsored by Lions Community Foundation. If you know folks that would potentially benefit from that training, I'd ask you to encourage them to attend. We're trying to make it as easy as possible to apply for grants. A couple of highlights. Last year, Lions Community Foundation grant program maxed out at $50,000. Due to the generosity of this community, we're going to have that amount increased to $75,000 this year. In the past, the cap on an individual grant was $5,000. We're able to raise that now to $7,000. And some thanks to Kim Mitchell, who made the suggestion, and it was a valid one. And so she was the genesis of making that change. So hope you all apply. I hope you succeed. The final thing I'd like to cover tonight, August 25th at River Bend will be the 4th annual Hootenanny, which is a joint effort between LEAF and Lions Community Foundation. We'll run from 2 to 7 at River Bend. Mayama will be performing. There will be a surprise band that will be there. There will be a silent auction that will have over 100 items of everybody's going to have something available. So we hope you will come down. I hope you'll encourage your friends and neighbors to come down. and have a good time at Hootenanny on August 25th at River. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so now it's time for the board to respond and then staff. So we'll do the board in the room and then Trustee Lowe, Trustee Hamrick, you're on alert. We'll go to you after that and then staff. Trustee Tillman?
I guess Mr. Sparks was thanking everybody, but I know Mr. Sparks was very involved with everything, so I'd just like to thank the Sparks family.
The collective Sparks.
Yes.
Trustee Brian?
Just briefly in response to Mr. Flynn's comments, there were a couple of things you pointed out. I already have proposed changes, and they're not exactly what you suggested, but I do intend to address a couple of those references. We'll do that when we get to those items on the agenda.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem? Trustee Lowe?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. I guess I missed all the excitement while I was away. I've just been reading the accounts of it and the email and on the Facebook, and it is, it was impressive. It really was. Again, the community coming together in a tough time.
Thank you. Trustee Hamrick, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Sorry, no, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank Mr. Flynn for his comments and Mr. Sparks, thank you very much for everything that you've done. And I want to let the community know that Mr. Sparks and I have been in communication about next year's Hootenanny, including a dunk tank that the town board can sign up for to raise money. It was, we had the idea a little bit too late to make it happen this year. But I know District Attorney Doherty did that at an event. It was a huge success. So I think the town board should be encouraged to prepare for next year. Okay, thank you, everybody. That, staff, do you have anything you'd like to?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, staff reports. Boulder County Sheriff's Office, you had a quiet week.
Yeah. Still recovering. So I can just talk a little bit about the fire. We are doing an after action Thursday, unknown time or location for the town and also the heads of all the fire districts and sheriff's office. So I'll get that out to you guys when I get it. First off, condolences to the people who lost their homes and the family of fatality. Still under investigation, so I don't have any details on that. But like everyone else said, I appreciate the town support. You know, the relationship we have with the town, all the town board members, Victoria. I mean, this goes on and on. Public Works, we never asked if they were on it like that. So Kim for helping get everything pushed out as soon as possible. Aaron worked tirelessly at the command post, with all of his roles and utilities and all that. All the deputies, outside agencies, the support we have, relationships we have with other agencies is tremendous, especially Lamar County. Like we were, our SWAT team, half our team was up there Monday doing evacuations. We were on standby for going back up Tuesday before this kicked off. So they were quick to help us out. Fire management team for the county, or dispatch, Forest Service, and just all the town's donations. Like those little things are huge, especially when people have been out in the heat, for hours on end and coming back to eat something good and some cool to drink. So definitely appreciate that. And then John DeBell, he lives up on Steamboat Valley Road. So him and his surrounding neighbors. So Eagle Ridge turns into a private section, and there's multiple gates, and they've done in the past several years, they've done tremendous fire mitigation up there and maintain that road for this exact reason. And our deputies probably wouldn't have they would have lost some vehicles for sure. If it wasn't for them doing what they did and planning for this, then we would have been in a really bad type spot. And our deputies, years and years of experience knowing, the whole county and knowing where that route was and how to direct people to it. It was scary there for a while. So appreciate all he's done. And I'm following up with him on ways to improve that and also make it more easy to access for deputies, locks and stuff like that. Because we did, Deputy Roseborough literally ripped a pole out of the ground to get the gate open. So if you don't know him, he's a huge dude. So I'm glad he was up there. So yeah, no, within 12 minutes, we're already doing evacuations, and within 30 minutes of this going off, this is just from the county. We had over 30 deputies on scene or very close. Basically, all hands on deck. The other agencies in Boulder County help cover our priority calls for us because they all know we're tied up. So couldn't have done it without them all. This had potential of being 10 times worse. It was perfect fire conditions. The wind picked up a little bit, but we didn't have those crazy winds, especially days after this, because even last night a storm rolled through that was pretty nasty through this area. So it's high winds. So and having the air resources we had so quickly, like they were dropping. They had a couple of airships and helicopters that were dropping less than 20 minutes after we got the first call to fire. So that's what saved a lot. And people who did fire mitigation, you can see if you've been up there, literally every piece of vegetation was burned, but they had good fire mitigation. That's what saved a lot of houses. And of course, the firefighters doing structure protection. So let's see. Is there any? I can go on more about the fire if you guys wish, or it's kind of.
And if anybody has any questions for Sergeant Sears about the fire, or I don't know if you have more to report on than the fire tonight. It's okay if you don't.
No, I have a lot, but I don't want to take up too much time. Just really the lessons we've learned from past critical incidences, like we're good at this, is because we've done it so much, especially helping out Larimer a few years ago. Our SWAT team was up there probably 7 or 8 times in evacuation, so we kind of have this down, which unfortunate, but that's how we get good at what we do. And and for evacuations, we trigger those sooner than later. It's easier to get people out versus waiting till last minute, especially up there. Those roads are tight and it's one way in, one way out type. And if you get stuck with fire, you're on a good day. So and our animal control, animal protection, just to see them work and go up there, get all the animals out, and even the neighbors helping their neighbors out with trailers and getting animals out. Because there's a lot of animals up there. Like one cattle ranch had a couple 100 heads of cattle up there that, and it's just cool to see people that aren't even affected by this, like just showing up and lines and lines of trailers to get animals out. So awesome. I would just highly suggest anyone, the town sent an email out a couple days ago about preparing yourself. So I just say, have a plan, be prepared, especially if you live in the mountains, because it's going to happen again. And the more you can do to ready yourself and your property and your family, the better. So make sure you're signing up for the BOCO alerts on BoulderODM.com or .gov. And then ready.gov is a website with a lot of resources for wildland fire preparedness. And the wildfire checklist that was also included, that Lions put together. It's a good checklist of what you should do with tips and go bags, things like that. And another thing I thought of was just like a rally point or somewhere outside of town, whether that's fairgrounds or a high school or church or something that you have with your family members and friends. That way, because sometimes cell phones don't always work, and if those go down, what do you do? So just have a rally point of where to go, to meet up with loved ones. So, and then obviously fire mitigation is key. So that's about it for that. We had rocky grass the prior weekend, which we lucked out because literally, if this would have happened 2 days prior, we would have had 5,000+ people to evacuate on top of everybody else. So, and on that, I know it's very frustrating for people like that want to get back home or go get stuff, and just know when it's a hard closure, we don't let people in. It's for a reason, but then as this slows down a little bit, we do escort people in to get medications or any important items that they need. So Folk Fest, their first movement was on Sunday, and then throughout this week, they have school, like music schools, and then the Folk Fest kicks off on Friday. So another busy weekend for town. And then let's see, tomorrow, National Night Out's tomorrow at Lone Park, 6 to 9. Just got 400 hamburgers and 400 hot dogs. People come hungry, please. We got a lot of cool things. We got a Flight to Life helicopter coming and a bunch of specialty units coming out for that, so it'll be fun. Hopefully we don't get rain this year. We need the rain, but not like last year. So obviously, shortly after this fire, the whole entire Holy County went into stage 2 fire restrictions. So really same restrictions for level 1, however, a little bit more restrictive it's more for private property, private property. So like no charcoal grills, no open fires in your backyard, things like that. So that's all on our website if you got questions on that. Or when in doubt, just call our dispatch and have Jeffrey talk to you about it. So little flock update. All the permits were finally signed last week. We're just waiting on 4 cameras to get installed and then 1 to be moved and installed somewhere else. And during the fires, we arrested our arson suspects from 4th of July that started a fire and attempted to burn a cabin down up South St. Vrain. So that was great work on our detectives. And then we're still working on updating all the general offenses, which it's going to be a lot. It's just waiting for people to have time, everyone involved, so have time to go through it and redo it all. So hopefully that'll be coming here in the next several weeks or so. Real quick for stats, our calls so far this year to the end of July were 1730, up 185 from last year, which was 1583 or 85. July we had 315, that was up 28 from the previous year. About 5% of all calls that we get in dispatch for everything from law enforcement stuff to fires, about 5% of all total calls. So that's about average. So just since all the traffic stops we've done this year like about 395. We spent 4,700 minutes total on traffic stops, which is a little less than last year, but extra patrols are up 3,100 minutes, so at like 10,600 minutes. Disturbances were kind of up about 4,400 from last year. Just time spent on those types of calls. Domestic violence type calls is down a lot, which is really good. Down 5,800, so we've only spent 697 minutes on those versus 6,500 from last year. Accidents, of course, are up about 2,700 extra minutes. I spent 201 minutes last year and 2,900 so far this year. That's why accidents are up so much. Tickets, we're at 375, which is a little bit lower from last year, about 20 less. In July, we had 95 tickets and 89 the following year. And then accidents are at 30 with up 19. So, and those don't count the accidents on U Highway across from the Circle K. If it happens on the roadway, the state patrols. So we had a pretty nasty one Monday.
Yeah.
And a car was pulling out to go west and got T-boned. So again, that's just a bad area. And then for flock, so Rocky Grass last year was our busiest weekend. So far this year it is too. We had almost 25,000 cars coming into town, and that's one car counted once per day. And then in 2023 for Rocky Grass weekend, we had 2,200 or 22,700. July, all cars coming into town was about almost 300,000. And then 2023 is 265,000. So we're up quite a bit on that. That is about it, I think.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll start in the room. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a question, comment?
Just a comment. I always see all your little tiny markings in your book, which I just kind of love because I'm older than dirt. And so I love when somebody has something actually written on a book, little tiny letters. I see that. I appreciate everything that's there. for watching you interact with the individual residents of this town. We're fortunate to have you.
What we do, so every deputy does the same thing, so it's just our mission statement and values that we follow. Have good leadership and, you know, awesome town that, you know, I call home, I live outside of town and, you know, I know I was in the exact area the whole time. Scariest it's been for me, but I was like, I'll hang on just for a little bit, so it worked out, so. We said.
Trustee Brian,
Great job this week. Appreciate it.
Mr. Dillon? Trustee Lowell, do you have anything to add or ask? That's a no, okay. Trustee Hamrick? Well, Sergeant Sears, I too saw you in action. Every single person in the Boulder County Sheriff's Office staff, up to and including Sheriff Johnson, are just exemplary human beings. And couldn't be more grateful. And I hope everybody here will join me in saying and I hope you can get some rest now.
Yeah, and Sunday was my first day off in like 3 weeks, so.
Well, I heard Trustee Gentleman has extra ice cream.
Appreciate it.
All right, administrators report.
Thank you. There's only 2 items I'd like to add to the fire update. And that is that for in town, inside the town limits, our next priority and goal will to be working with the county on a plan for the potential storm drain runoff that will come off of Stone Canyon. And from our mapping is going to show that it will go into the containment area within the Stone Canyon residence. So we are working closely with Boulder County to come up with a plan before our first major rain, which could be expected as early as Friday. So we will be focusing our attention on that so that the ash, the debris, the slurry does not end up in the same Green Creek. So that's our next big priority for that. And then I was also asked to address why the sirens did not go off.
Thank you.
So, and Sergeant Sears, please jump in if you want, but it should be known that if you are signed up as a Forever Bridge, or if you own a property in town, every property that was in the mandatory evacuation zone received either an Everbridge or a reverse 911 call directly. Okay, the reason now that the sirens, I work very closely with Mike Chard, who's the director of the Office of Disaster Management for Boulder County. And they are the final decider of when to set the sirens off, but we talk about it. Like today, you notice is the first Monday, we did not run the sirens. We thought that was too traumatic and simply too close to the event that it might confuse people or scare people. So we did not run them today, although they ran a silent test to make sure the system works. But what happens is each person got notified individually. And the reason we chose to do that is because had the sirens gone off in the whole town, it would have been mass chaos, when what we really needed was to get people in very specific neighborhoods out first. So the sirens will never go unless it is a town-wide mandatory evacuation for flood, fire, any other type of disaster. Otherwise, people get notified individually. And that's the rationale is, we've heard about fears of what will happen if all of Fifth Avenue had to come down at once. This is the exact reason why we don't do that, is we do it by the neighborhood that needs it first and foremost, and then it's added on as needed. Had we gotten to a mandatory evacuation for the entire town, they certainly would have gone.
Thank you.
You're
Can I
welcome.
add on that?
Yes, please.
So at 14:01, so 2:01 PM, so what, like less than 20 minutes from the initial call, or just a little over they had 502 Everbridge, 502 contacts notified through Everbridge. And then they also did the iPods, which is, I can't remember what exactly it stands for, but basically it goes out to any cell phone that is within that area from the cell tower.
Like an Amber Alert.
And that was actually pretty quick after, I have it down for somewhere, but that was pretty quick. Probably 10 minutes or less than the Everbridges. So we have Polygon, we have all hazards of Polygon. So the whole county is broken up, especially the mountains are broken up into different polygons that we can just say, oh, and we triggered, I think, total like 4 or 5 polygons. And it takes a minute. Sometimes if we don't want to launch that whole polygon, because for instance, we sent a warning message to basically Plant Bluegrass north or west up to Blue Mountain Road, just on the east side of the river, because the smoke was rolling down into that area pretty good, but we weren't too concerned with it at the time. But so they have to like hand draw those and then send it to someone else, who sent to somebody else to send it out. So it does take some time. But versus, we used to just say, I need evacuations or Everbridge sent out, 1 mile radius from this location. And then it takes a while for them to draw that, and then maybe won't hit everybody. So yeah, that's kind of how it works.
And I just want to add, living in the area that was evacuated, we came home to a tag on our bush. I believe that you all went door to door
Yes.
as well.
So yeah, how we do evacuations, we just kind of do strike teams and Alpha Bravo or whatever, and send them up certain ways, and they just leapfrog each other. So we flag every driveway and any house that we go to at the intersections. That way we know, cool, the next car coming up, they might be a few minutes behind or whatever. We'll just, if they see tape, crime scene tape or whatever tape we're using, then they know they can just keep going. And so we do those face to faces, if we can. If we can't, I know the lower part of Stone Canyon, at the time it wasn't necessarily as much of a threat than it was to the other homes on Stone Canyon and Eagle Ridge. Is I had deputies just go through with their lights and sirens and then PA announcements. So we'll do PA announcements if it's like the fire's here, like get out right now type thing. But we do go door to door, like the Marshall Fire. We did a lot of those because we were surrounded with fire. But and then so that's what those tags are for. And then a lot of people, you can't force people to leave, but if it's mandatory, just know you should probably leave or we wouldn't be here and we may not be back. So most people left. There's only a handful of homes that resident, homeowners that did stay. But especially if you can see the fire that's moving to your house, probably. It's just,
Thank you. What else, Administrator?
So this is a good time to remind people that the county has recently come out with a new program, the Wildfire Mitigation Rebate Program, that offers residents $500 to do some hardening and defensible space around their properties to reduce the potential for wildfire spread. So you can go out to wildfirepartners.org and look at this. I believe there were 4 or 5 steps for the rebate. Couple other things that are not nearly as exciting, but nonetheless happened in the last couple of weeks since we last met that we want to make sure get noted for public record. We did have the National Flood Insurance Program came to Lyons, and in preparation for our second reading tonight of adopting the new floodplain ordinance and new national flood insurance maps. We did have extensive public outreach for this ordinance because we are adding about 40 new homes into the floodway, which means their insurance is going to go up. So we did newspaper articles, e-blasts, websites, and we hung approximately 180 door knockers on every home in the floodplain. And we held a public meeting, and the state came down for that, and the National Flood Insurance Program. We had 18 people attend. So it was rather disappointing for the attendance, but everyone should be notified now that their flood insurance is going to change in October. Anyone with a federally backed mortgage must have flood insurance. So we tried to make sure people were aware. Also, this last couple of weeks, since we met, we had the July curbside limb pickup. Brian Bear, who was the contractor who got that bid, was very, very pleased. It only took 2 days this time around versus 8 the last time.
Excellent.
And he really thinks that the drop-off events have made the impact and people are taking that seriously, so that's good. There was also the Laverne Johnson statue dedication over at the depot, which had I believe someone said it was nearly 200 people attending that. So we want to make sure that gets documented. And then HUD has selected Monday, August 26th to celebrate the anniversary of the Community Development Block Grant Program, which we utilized heavily in our flood recovery. They are going to be bringing about 100 people to Lyons to see our flood recovery efforts and celebrate their 50th anniversary of that type of funding. And also we hosted the National Hazards Research Center Conference, also had about 60 people here in the last couple of weeks to tour as well. So just when we put everything away last September for the flood, we're revisiting and getting it all back up. We do want to mention that there is a new glass recycling program in town. And for those who are willing to take an extra step in their recycling, there will be a separate dumpster now at the recycling center for glass. There is a program that's opened up in Broomfield that will remake glass into new glass instead of it being co-mingled with the paper and the plastic. So it's going to be a trial project. Should be a big blue box that should be here anytime. I know I forgot here today, but it's supposed to be the 1st of August. But they have selected certain communities as trials to see if it's successful, and we're one of those. So if you're willing to recycle glass separately, that would be great. And then other upcoming events, we have another concert in the park tomorrow or Wednesday night. The Boulder County Fair will be kicking off full gear. Folks Fest, and then starting August 12th, we'll be doing our sewer line inspections and cleaning starting on the north side of town, and we'll get that out there a little more between now and then.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do you have any questions, Dr. John?
Stone Canyon, we're good to be parking on both sides of the street now?
You're good to be, I believe there's only one side you park on, the
Right.
house side.
Yeah, that's,
Yes.
yeah, that's what I meant, on that.
Unless I get told otherwise by the fire protection district or someone else who's still utilizing it. My understanding is it's okay for now to open that back up.
Also want to thank you for being such a calming, grounding presence. My God, you are the Energizer Bunny. You just keep going and going and going. But just watching how calming and grounding you are for our people, you can tell this is not your first rodeo. And it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you.
Trustee Brennan?
I noticed in the payables, there was like a $3,200 payable to Bear Forestry. Was that what the cost ended up being of the curbside, or was that something different?
I would have to look, specifically, but I'll follow up with you. There may have been other tree trimming.
Yeah, I know he
for-
does other work. Okay.
Yeah, I can find out for you.
Trustee Donners? Trustee Lowell, would you have anything to ask or add? Trustee Hammer? Okay. Well, I'll echo what Mayor Pro Tem said. And we hope that, if those skills don't ever have to come into play again. But it was incredibly comforting to have you at the helm.
Thank you. That's why you go into public service, right, Cody, to serve the public.
Yeah. Okay. And Attorney Dittman, is there a legal update tonight?
Not an extensive one. I did want to update an issue I talked about at a previous meeting concerning the backflow prevention kind of issue that occurred about the state. So EPHE has put out guidance saying they're not going to enforce that. There still are some work to do with the plumbing boards, I understand it, but We went ahead and did a memo for all of our clients on it, as it was such a big issue, and so because of the fire that kind of delayed, but I'll distribute that soon for the resolution of that, and there's supposed to be a legislative fix next year, to hopefully clean up for good, so,
Nothing else?
nothing else.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Attorney Denman? Look like it. Trustee Lowell, Trustee Hamrick? Nope. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here in person tonight. Okay. According to the amended agenda, next up is the second reading and public hearing of ordinance 1166. An ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending section 15-1 340B2 of the Lyons Municipal Code concerning the 5-acre rule. So the way this will go, second reading and public hearing, and Attorney Dittman will correct me if I'm wrong, is we will have a staff report. The board will ask questions of staff. Then we will open the public hearing. There's a sign-up sheet for this matter. If you didn't sign up, maybe raise your hand and it can get around to you. We'll do folks in the room first and then any folks online. It looks like we're not having the same issues we had during our workshop, so that's great. Thank you, Clerk Vasquez. Yes. And then after everybody has spoken, much like audience business, name and address, we're going to do 3 minutes because of the number of people. So everybody will have 3 minutes. After everybody has spoken, then we will close the public hearing. I will entertain a motion. Assuming there's a second, the board will then discuss and then the board will vote. Okay? How do I do?
Perfect.
All right, then can we please have a staff report?
Yeah, it'll just be short. Second reading, just for the record, again, this is an insertion to section 15-1-340, and it adds language that reads as follows. It's further provided that any annexation of property smaller than 5 acres, which have been subdivided, severed, or otherwise carved out from property of 5 acres or more since September 5th, 2000 shall not be exempt from this section. As was stated at first hearing, this text amendment was initiated by Trustee Browning, and it's to secure more input from the community for all annexations that come into the town, and especially to address the exempt annexation process that's permitted through Boulder County. And that's really it. As far as, again, in the last staff report that I provided, at least through a planning perspective, annexations are important to the community for future growth, where needed and where it can be responsible. Of course, infill is always the most appropriate option, but keeping options open for annexation is also important as well. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Trustee Lowe, any questions for Planner Bowen? Trustee Hamrick? Mayor Pro Tem? Trustee Brown?
No questions.
Trustee Dahmer? Nor do I. Okay, so I will open the public hearing. Dolores, Clerk Vasquez, do we have the list? Or does Aaron have the list?
Liz Early is first, followed by Roger Flynn.
Thank you. And how many total?
10, it looks like, one question with 10.
Great, thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Liz Early, 1011 Steamboat Valley Road. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you involved in keeping the town of Lyons safe during the Stone Canyon fire. And I'm going to look at all of you because you are all involved, and I really appreciate it. We all do. As our Lyons fire chief said, if the fire got over the ridge, it would have been disastrous. There are a lot of homes up there, and it's right on the edge of town, he said. It wouldn't take anything at all for that fire to have come right down the hill into town proper. So we were really lucky that day. Balanced and managed development, not an acquired and build mindset, is even more apparent, and I encourage all of you to vote yes on this 5-acre rule amendment. This is a responsible thing to do.
Thank you very much.
Roger Flynn, followed by Ed Russell.
Good evening, everyone. Again, Roger Flynn at 1010 Steamboat Valley Road. I really appreciate what Andrew said, that the goal of the ordinance is to quote, secure more input from the community. I trust everyone in this room values more input from the community. That's what this ordinance does. Turning to the specifics on the packet that came out, a little history, the 5-acre rule was ratified by 62% of the vote back in 2000. Thank goodness, that was the Stone Canyon fight. All those houses would have been up in Stone Canyon if it wasn't for the 5-acre rule passing. And what this ordinance does is prevent the annexations that, as the planner talked about, from the county to subdivide areas to take away the citizens' vote. So as Dr. Early said, thank goodness we had it back then, and let's hope that we have it in the future. A couple of thoughts on the relationship with other plans in the packet. Correct citations to the comp plan about annexation is part of Lions, the potential for Lions to do. One thing is not mentioned is that the comp plan also says there should be no housing in natural hazard areas. I think we know what those are now, if we didn't know before. And the town code, I think you should at least be aware of that the town code also prevents annexations above the blue line without an extensive process that is in the best interest of the town as well. So I think those things need to be further considered by the BOT as you vote on this. On the last page, Town of Lions intends to focus annexation and new development in the East St. Vrain area. I think that's what most people have. I was on the PCDC for 8 years, 3-mile plan. We worked on that, and that's the area where everyone's been focused on for years and years. And 1166 will not affect that because it's got the 10-acre. And so that, so for example, the Tebow annexation won't have that. Lastly, I think some people say, well, what do we need this for? We're going to have the moratorium they're going to vote on later today. We're going to have a, the citizens are going to vote on that. You've heard my concerns about the language of that. But let's have transparency. I bet you all the people that signed the announcements and support would want to know what each member of the BOT votes on this. They want to know. It's going to come for a vote, I think, for transparency, which we all support. Let's please get on the record if you support this or not. The fire is only really dramatized that land use issues, particularly on the north side of town where 1166 is going to be the most impacted or governed, is a big issue. And people are concerned about it. I think it's a welcome improvement to protect the town and is in the spirit of the original 5-acre rule, which thank goodness we have. I think everyone realizes that this week. Thank goodness we have a 5-acre rule. Let's make sure it can't get circumvented by the county and developers, especially on the north side.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ed Russell, followed by John Corson Riker.
You want to go next,
John, please switch.
John Corson Riker, I live at 1009 Horizon Drive. I have 2 comments to make. The first one is really a comment from 208 people here in town who have agreed to have their names put on the list of supporters for this amendment. And it's important to understand this comes from all over town, from 35 from the central area, 60 from the north area, 25 from the northeast hillside, First Avenue, Second Avenue, Longs Peak Drive, and so forth, 34 from South McConnell, 53 from Stone Canyon. And this was all before the fire, except for maybe the last 10 people. So, and I'm sure there would be a groundswell of further interest and basically just assuring what we hear is that people want to have their voice. They want to have a voice in annexation and have their own voice in either advocating for annexation or expressing their concerns about it. The second point I want to make is just my personal observation that I think it's been very disturbing to people who are public servants, all of you are public servants, to have mistrust and allegations of nefarious maneuverings behind the scenes and whatever other allegations have been made that I think are, given the kind of service you do, it's really unfortunate when there's misunderstandings that cause this kind of feeling around town. And I think that one of the things that this amendment feels like to me is an opportunity to kind of lay to rest this whole issue about carving off parcels and making them just under 5 acres to circumvent the 5-acre rule. And that argument would go away. We can have much better discussions about the IGA and the real issues at hand, which are not the mechanisms of annexation, but are really, where do we want as a town to have development, and what are the concerns, what are the priorities, what are the conditions that where people would support it. So I just think it would be very helpful from that point of view to support this amendment. I would you want to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
He switched with Ed Russell was next, followed by Cindy Fisher.
Sorry for the confusion there. Ed Russell, 770 Steamboat Valley Road. Mayor Rogan, trustees and town staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As John had just mentioned, we've collected over 200 signatures from all parts of town supporting the amendment implemented by Ordinance 1166. With upcoming resolution 2024-62, if approved, there will be an election. That's great, but the people who signed the petition signed up for the trustees to approve the ordinance tonight. It can then be ratified come November if resolution 2024-62 passes, as I expect it will. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cindy Fisher, followed by Steve Good.
Hi, and thank you for what you did in the fire. All it had to do was run with my rabbits. You guys worked so hard. Thank you. So Cindy Fisher, 125 Eagle Valley Drive, and I would like to ask you to support the amendment. I have never been involved in any kind of government thing, and I've never even gone door to door to sell Girl Scout cookies. But I did go door to door in our neighborhood to just ask people how they felt about the amendment and have them sign if they wanted to see it pass. And I got comments like, wow, this is the most relaxed. I don't want to tell anybody what to think. It's not my place. This is America. But I wanted them to know about it and to make a decision. And I believe only 3 houses said they didn't know enough about it yet. And everybody else signed it and said, thank you for doing this. I couldn't believe it because, you know, I'm not the kind of person who wants to go see a friend without asking for permission. It was really surprising to me that it was so overwhelming in support of the amendment. I mean, I knew how I felt about trying to keep my rights for something that had been voted on, but I had no idea that my neighbors would feel this way overwhelmingly. So please, and I know I can only speak for those I talked to, I didn't get to the east side of Stone Canyon because my knee is bad, it was hot, and that's all slope and stairs. I will go back and see what they think, but I covered everything else. I didn't go back, they didn't answer, but it's still a lot of people, as you heard on the report. So again, I hope that you will show these people that you understand what they want. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Good, followed by Kat Russell.
Hello, Steve Good, 125 Eagle Valley Drive. I just want to strongly ask you to support this and pass this amendment. I accompanied Cindy around our subdivision, and it was a very slow process because people really wanted to talk a lot about this and learn about it, and we're very supportive and excited to share their support for it. A lot of thank yous, and I want to thank you.
Thank you very much.
Kat Russell, followed by Kelly Sproul.
I'm Catherine Russell from 770 Steamboat Valley Road. I sincerely thank the board for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the acceptance of ordinance 1166, the 5-acre rule amendment. I am in favor of this amendment introduced by Trustee Browning. To vote against this amendment suggests that the board considers active participation by Lyon citizens in town annexation and growth considerations an impediment to the board's agenda. And yet the board is the representative agent of these very people. As recently as the rigorous approval process that went into the 2012 IGA, town citizens helped deliver a blueprint for safe and reasonable areas for town growth and expansion. They were not an impediment to these development decisions. They were a key asset in delivering a plan that would allow Lyons to thrive while maintaining its scenic small town charm. To govern in the posture of cutting out the public vote is a disservice to the integrity of the people who represent, yet for the people that you represent and serve every day. Silly hypothetical. Hypothetically speaking, what if one day the Board of Trustees attended their regular Monday evening meeting only to find that the town staff told them that their representation was no longer necessary? That staff had discovered a loophole that would allow them to cut off trustee active participation in co-governing the town they call home. I would think that the Board of Trustees would adamantly disagree with this staff overreach and remind them that the trustees were elected to represent the town and must be able to vote in its own governance. I would also think that the Board of Trustees would draft an amendment to close this said loophole so proper balance could be reinstated in local government. This made-up situation parallels what Ordinance 1166 is intended to do: close a loophole that cuts out the democratic representation of town citizens in matters of annexation and growth. Approving Ordinance 1166 will reinstate a proper balance between town government and citizens. Let's work together in shaping the future of our joint community. Thank you. So 2 seconds. I also wanted to share the information. We have been introduced to, it's called Watch Duty. It's a phone app. You all use it. You all. Yeah.
Well, we do that.
Okay.
You tell people.
Oh,
Always helps.
I wanted to let everyone know that there is a phone app called Watch Duty. Okay, everyone seems to know. We were probably the very last one to know. But anyway, it is essential. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Clerk Vasquez?
Kelly Sproul, followed by Rob Miller. Good evening. I want to echo most people just to thank everybody for all the Kelly Sproul, 415. All the presents and this past weekend, getting us through it, and everybody safe. I'm here just to, again, kind of echo that I support the amendment for the 5-acre rule so that it can continue on with its seeming spirit of what it was created for in the first place. And I hope to see that be accepted and voted on. From the event this past weekend, I had firefighters that showed up at our door, I think on Wednesday or Thursday, 2 firefighters that were told to come to people insured under a certain insurance company, and they provided a lot of information. One of the biggest things was there are, up on this north side of town, there are a lot of controllable variables. The grasses, the trees, the proximity of things to your home. And one of the things that is completely out of their control is the density of homes, and that what a blessing when, one of the homes goes up in flames if there's not homes packed right next to it. And without knowing, what the dialogue has been in this room for the last, different rooms around here for the last year now, So that was intriguing to hear, and they also commented on knowing the flow rates of the fire hydrants up there and the possibilities of even if there's pumps that are pumping water, if they are electrically supplied and the electricity goes down. It's a tricky part of town to be increasing density of houses where the degree of temperature when a fire is happening is so much higher on a home than through wildlands. So I think that's just, again, more really valuable information that I know us citizens have been seeking since last August when we first sat down and were, discussed this as a possibility that's, at that point in time was not a possibility, but now as conversations have gone on, the idea of annexation and higher density than is currently in most of that further out north end of town currently is. So this is the information that I think we've all been seeking, and we're starting to get it, that yes, the dangers that are posed by not securing the 5-acre vote, citizens having their voice heard so that whatever agenda is influencing this, that, or the other is also met with, thank you, what people need to be saying. Thank you.
Rob Miller, followed by David Chilson.
Hi, Rob Miller, 1019 Horizon Drive. First, Mayor, staff, and trustees, as always, really appreciate all the work you do here. Not only in the fire, but just in navigating some of these issues. So I think it's a great thing to be part of this town to be able to do that. I'm not sure I can add more. I'm here to support the amendment. I didn't do anything as thorough, but talking to friends out throughout Lyons and got a lot of great feedback about the fact that it feels like that's the right thing to be doing is this amendment. So that's always nice. And I'm always reminded by the fact that I may be wrong. And so it'd be fun to be able to, if that's the case, maybe the citizens should be able to tell me that I'm wrong and we find out who's right or whatever. But it's great to be able to have that opportunity, to be able to have the citizens participate in that. So I hope that you'll support the amendment on that. I certainly do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Last is David Chilson.
Hey, David Chilson, 731 Second Avenue. My family and I have a few thoughts we'd like to share. One is my son joined the wildland firefighters in Lyons a few months ago. He's been training with some great people down there. And then he worked on the ridge over the town this last week. And so we have some thoughts since we got evacuated. We live up there too. It's reinforced for us the idea that we don't want to add any more houses as kindling for any future fire scenario up there. And especially above the blue line without adequate avenues of escape and built without people's approval on a referendum. So that's why I'm here to urge the passage of Ordinance 1166. Nothing wrong with both resolutions, and I agree with Roger's take on the language. Should be cleaned up to be more straightforward. But 1166, I would urge you not to pass up the opportunity and perhaps the duty to vote on it, because that's what's in front of us and the town deserves to know where everyone stands on this. And I would like to suggest that the referendum in November be more of a chance for the town to say yay or nay to your actions here today. And that's kind of where we stand. So please adopt 1166. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll move on to folks online. If you are online and you would like to speak during this public hearing, please let us know by raising your digital hand. And I will call on you. The clerk will ask you to unmute and turn on your video. Mr. Burrito, would you like to speak? Okay. Could you please unmute him? Thank you.
Hi,
Please
this
state
is
your
Matt
name and address for the record. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Matt Vavrina, 405 Vasquez Court. I just wanted to echo others in the room on asking you to support Ordinance 1166. It is it's receiving broad community support, and it is in the spirit of the original 5-acre rule. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else online, please raise your hand. Don't see anybody. Thank you very much. Thanks for hanging in there with us with this. Yes.
Just for the record, I see Mr. Angelo on the screen. He did send in a comment to be read in, which I did forward to the board.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I would entertain a motion. Trustee Browning, would you like to make a motion?
Sure would. I would like to move the adoption on second reading of ordinance 1166, an ordinance of the Town of Lyons amending section 15-1-340B2 of the Lyons Municipal Code concerning the 5-acre.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
2 seconds. Okay. So there's a motion and a second. Let's start the discussion with the folks online, just to mix it up a little bit. Trustee Hammock, would you like to start?
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
No, this is discussion.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, I'm in full support of this resolution or ordinance. So appreciate everybody's input. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hammock. Trustee Lowell?
There we go. All right. It keeps telling me that the host won't allow me to unmute myself, but everybody can hear me now, I assume.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I've spoken at length during the first reading about this. I'm in favor of it. I intend to vote yes. I think this ordinance, passage of this ordinance will restore the public trust in the annexation process, which I believe was compromised, at least by perception of the public. And I do want to emphasize the word perception. That there was some sort of an effort to undermine the 5-acre annexation rule during the IGA creation. I think this amendment to the 5-acre rule will prevent any future considerations of workarounds by property owners, developers, staff, boards, and it'll restore residents' trust. I've heard that as a recurring theme amongst all the people who've spoken here tonight and previously on this. So I'm going to be voting yes on this.
Thank you, Trustee Lowell, and appreciate your patience with the Zoom. This is kind of a new system here since we got Zoom bombed earlier. We're just taking some extra precautions. So we're all getting used to that. So appreciate your patience. Mayor Pro Tem?
I do not personally feel that 1166 is necessary, but I don't sit here as an individual and make decisions in the same way that I do at a ballot box. I speak on behalf of the residents of this town and the people who have elected me, and they have made it abundantly clear that they want us to vote in favor of 1166, so it will be my intention to do so. However, I do feel that I really want to go on record to say the assumption that the previous board saw the 5-acre rule as an impediment to the board's agenda, I quote and end quote, an impediment to the board's agenda is not based on fact. Those are my only comments.
Thank you very much. Trustee Browning?
I'll be brief because I think this has been discussed a number of times. I will say that the genesis of this ordinance was citizens. Before I was elected to the board, I participated in and heard from a number of citizens about their concerns about carve-out annexations that came in response to citizen open records request to the town. And I will say that the amount of citizen input that's been received during this process for this proposed ordinance has been extraordinary in my experience. Much welcome. This is really an experiment in local democracy. And I think in this case, it worked. I think the citizens made their views clear. I think the board has listened. And I basically commend the citizens for getting this done. I do want to say that the intent behind proposing this ordinance was never to stop all growth in the town of Lyons or prevent any future annexations. What it does is increase the amount of citizen control that already exists to a great degree under the 5-acre rule over potential annexations and development. I do trust the citizens of Lyons to responsibly evaluate future annexations, whether large or small. There have been a number of small annexations in the past years that have benefited the town of Lyons greatly. And citizens, I would urge them to keep an open mind in the future, and if something is proposed for either residential or commercial development, that this rule happens, this amendment happens to catch, don't just automatically reject it because you have the power to do so, but at that time, evaluate the merits and demerits of it and make your decisions based on what's in the best interest of the town of Lyons. That's what we try to do as trustees. And I trust citizens to do the same in the areas where the citizens have requested and received the authority to make decisions on their own. So thank you again for all of the active input that and time that a lot of people have put into this. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Trustee Gilman?
So I would like to say that I support 1166. And also I want to thank everybody for showing up and speaking their minds and doing it in a positive way, which doesn't always happen. And also one of the reasons I ran again this time was because I was concerned about all the possibilities of where housing could go, and I did want to make sure that it didn't go into areas that I don't feel is appropriate. And also I think that with a lot of the information, there was misconception about what we as the prior board did and what we were trying to do. And there's a lot of information that we were getting, and people thought that we were making these decisions when that wasn't true.
Well, I would like to echo Mayor Pro Tem. I will be voting yes on this. And I also want to talk a little bit about how the sort of triangle that exists with this and the moratorium and the ballot issue. You may not know that once we approve an ordinance on second reading, it takes 30 days to go into effect. Enacting a moratorium tonight means that that cannot happen. So in case there was any concern that there's anybody trying to slide in under the wire, that moratorium will alleviate that concern. The reason that I feel strongly about adding a ballot question to this is, you know, there's direct democracy and there's representative democracy. Us folks up here and Trustee Hamrick and Trustee Lowell, that's representative democracy. The original 5-acre rule was an effort of direct democracy. I firmly believe that any changes to that rule should be made by the voters. Now, what we're doing tonight, you know, as I hear that everybody is going to vote yes, it's going to be unanimous. So the ordinance will be passed. It will go into effect in 30 days. If we pass the ballot question 2 tonight, it will appear on the ballot. The ordinance will be in effect. The moratorium will be in effect unless the voters tell us that they would like the board to overturn it. Okay, I just want to be super clear because I heard there was some confusion. You know, it is, I have to say, frustrating to hear time and time again that there are conspiracy theories about what is the board trying to do, what is the board trying to do. The board is trying to do our job and serve the citizens of this town, nothing more. So unless there are any other comments, I will call for the vote, and Clerk Vasquez, I will ask you to get voice votes from Trustee Lowe and Trustee Hamrick after we vote. Is that okay? Gotcha. All right, I will call for the vote.
Aye.
No, it looks like he froze up.
Aye.
There we go. We have a unanimous vote.
Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, can they remain unmuted? Sure.
They can, yeah, then we won't be needing to go through this process.
Okay, yeah, trustee Hemrick, trustee Lowe, if you don't mind remaining unmuted, that might help.
You can always mute on your machine too, it won't
Okay.
do it through Zoom, yeah.
Yeah, all right, so, that ordinance has passed, okay? Great. All right, so then next up would be Resolution 2024-62, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, referring a question to the electors of the Town of Lyons on amending the 5-acre annexation rule. Would you like to do the staff report?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a quick staff report so people understand kind of the strangeness of this, that it was not quite designed. This is the ballot question. So under Colorado law, the board is not allowed to do a referendum. It's just not a power the board has, which is what a lot of people are asking for about whether this should continue. And so instead what we're doing, we're referring an adopted ordinance. And so with that, or we're asking a non-binding question. Those are really the two options available to us. So either it has to ask the voters whether they would like an ordinance of a certain kind, or whether it should be a non-binding question the board later follows. And I'm indifferent as to how that happens. But the way it was drafted, and which was a collaborative effort between myself, Mayor Rogan, and Trustee Browning, you know, just as a draft, was to get around this issue of not being able to do a referendum. So that's a little bit of the background about why it may appear to be strange. There was various other moving parts in combination with the moratorium and the ordinance also, you know, led, I think, some of the questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions about it. I know we're probably gonna do some work on cleaning it up, kind of given the process it went through. But I just want to explain some of the reasoning about why isn't it as simple as should this be repealed, or as you can't do that.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your work on this. All right, questions from the board to Attorney Dittman or staff? Trustee Lowell, Trustee Hamrick, any questions?
Nope.
Okay, there are no questions. I will entertain a motion.
Move the adoption of resolution 2024-62, referring the question to the electors of the Town of Lyons on amending the 5-acre annexation rule.
Second.
All right, discussion. Who would like to start?
I'd like to propose an amendment first before we get to the main.
All right, please.
Actually, I have two amendments. So the first one is proposed to amend resolution 2024-62 by striking the last whereas on the first page, which refers to a sunset of November 5th, 2024. And then I'll explain that in a minute. That's my motion to strike that last whereas.
I'll second that motion. Go ahead.
Yeah, and during some discussions among individual one-on-one board member discussions, there was the concept was discussed of should we include in the ordinance that we just passed a provision that says it sunsets, it goes away the day after the election if the citizens said no. The alternative to doing that would be if the citizens do vote no in November, to trust the board to then come back and say, okay, we're going to repeal that ordinance because the citizens didn't like it. It's the latter option that we're going with. And this reference to a sunset provision in this resolution reflected that other possibility. So this is really just updating this to reflect the final version of the ordinance that we passed. It doesn't have a sunset clause, so we need to remove this whereas.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
And even further than that, the wrong version got uploaded, which included the sunset. The last version that was supposed to be uploaded did not have the sunset, just an oversight. Not many drafts were floating back and forth.
Yes, many. Thank you. Any comments on that amendment before I call for vote? Looking at the screens, doesn't look like it. Okay, let's vote on that amendment.
Trustees? Online?
Aye.
Trustee Lowe,
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously.
You got it, thanks. And then my second amendment is in the next paragraph of the version of the resolution that appears in the packet. That paragraph reads right now, whereas the board desires to refer a question on whether the town should continue the adopted ordinance 1166, which amends the 5-acre rule to exclude properties of less than 5 acres subdivided from a larger tract since September 2000. My proposal for that language is to delete the word exclude and substitute for that the words require a citizen vote on annexation of, so that the relevant phrase would say the board or whether the town it would say which amends the 5-acre rule to require a citizen vote on an annexation of less than 5 acres and so forth. That's my proposed.
Did you get that?
Yep, I got it.
Okay. I'll second that. Any discussion on that?
And the purpose of this is really just to clarify some language. This is one of the things that Mr. Flynn suggested earlier. I think this is a little bit different than the language he suggested, but as written, I didn't think it made the wording exactly clear. So I think the amendment changes that to make it more clearly describe what an ordinance 1166 did, which was as stated, which amended the 5-acre rule to require a citizen vote on an annexation of less than 5 acres that has been carved out.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Okay, we'll vote on the amendment.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Trustee Lowell, this is just like old times, COVID days, huh?
No,
Putting you in a little
no,
box.
I don't want to go there.
All right. Anyone else have any amendments? Okay. Discussion. Trustee Hamrick, would you like to start?
Yeah, I don't have anything. I'm in support of the amendment.
Here, Trustee Lowell.
No, I have nothing to add. I'm in support.
Burton?
Nothing to read. Support.
Trustee Brennan?
A couple of things real quickly. As far as the ballot language itself will appear on the ballot, and all these whereases don't appear on the ballot, just the language in boldface that's within the resolution appears on the ballot. Trustee Lowell and I worked together on some proposed language and submitted that to the town attorney for his review, which is the appropriate thing to do when you're dealing with technicalities about ballot issues. His language is not exactly what we proposed, but he carefully researched what was the appropriate language. I think the language that's there clearly and simply puts a question, a yes or no question to the voters of the town of Lyons. I think they can understand it. I think there's been a lot of public attention and education on this issue already. As Ms. Fisher said, when she went from door to door, a lot of people already understood that this issue was being discussed. And I think we need to further education between now and November. So I think this language gives citizens a clear yes or no directive on whether they would like this the ordinance that we just passed. And I will state on the record that although I strongly support and propose to ordinance 1166, should I have misread the will of the voters of Lyons about whether they would like to have the right to vote on carve out amendments of less than 5 acres, if they vote no in November, I will not only vote for, I will actively push for the repeal of ordinance 1166, because I feel strongly that the will of the voters must be respected, even on things that we may or may not personally agree with. There were a couple of prior ordinances I didn't personally agree with, but I respect what the voters said and we followed. And I have great confidence that all the members of the board will do the same thing and will respect what the voters say. And I think this measure very simply and clearly puts the question to them, and we'll see what they say, and I hope they say yes.
Thank you. Trustee Gilman, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
I have nothing to add either, so I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And then finally, we have the resolution 2024-63, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, implementing a temporary moratorium on any annexation applications carved out under 5 acres. Attorney Dippin?
Yeah, so as Mayor Rogan said earlier, technically, the ordinance we just passed, 1166, will not take effect until 30 days after publication. So at least theoretically, someone could carve off or subdivide, a property down to 5 acres and annex it in time. It would still have to go through a lot of public process. Unlikely that would ever happen, but there's at least the theoretical possibility that could happen. And so I was asked to draft a moratorium that would prevent the town from processing any application of that kind up until the time of the election.
Thank you. Any questions for Attorney Dittman on this? No questions, I would entertain a motion.
Move the adoption of resolution 2024-63 enacting a temporary moratorium on the acceptance of certain annexation applications.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. You, any discussion?
I'll just say, I think as the town attorney said, I think it's very unlikely that any property owner or developer would try to slip something in under a wire, knowing that a citizen's vote is pending in less than 3 months. But there is a potential loophole there, and we might as well close it. So I see no harm being done by this moratorium, and might as well do it just to make sure status quo remains in place until the voters have their say.
I agree with Trustee Browning. There is, after this vote, assuming we all vote yes, there is literally no way any quote carve out property will annex into the town of Lyons between now and November, not even apply. Okay? Okay, I will call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. Okay. How do we feel about taking short breaks? I know a bunch of people are gonna take off. It's 8:35. Can we take 2 minutes? Yeah, okay. We're gonna take 10 minutes, gentlemen, online. we do a check-in to see if there's see where we are in the meeting, see if anybody would like to potentially move anything to a different meeting. How are we feeling like we're okay going forward with this agenda? Do for 10?
Aye.
I think
Trustee
so.
Browning, Trustee Downer. Trustee Wall, you okay with moving forward with our agenda? Yeah. Trustee Hammer, you all right? Moving forward with the agenda? All right. And then we will. Okay, so next up, second reading and public hearing of ordinance 1165. An ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, redacting and replacing chapter 18, article 15 of the Lyons Municipal Code regarding flood damage prevention. Can we have a brief staff report, please?
It's gonna be Justin Dole's tonight. Town engineer.
Evening, Engineer Doles, how are you?
You missed all the activity last week too.
All right, sorry, a little
Oh, no.
technology difficulties there.
Tell us about it.
All right, yeah, this is the second reading of this ordinance. It's redacting chapter 18, article 15 of the Lyons Municipal Code and replacing it with the recommended updated ordinance language from the National Flood Insurance Program. This ordinance will also correct errors and omissions in the current language, update references to the correct floodplain mapping that FEMA will be adopting in October, and provide reference to the violations section of the LMC to better help the town enforce floodplain development violations. As mentioned, this is the second reading. The first reading was in July, and then Victoria and I also hosted an open house for the public to kind of go over these changes and address any questions anyone had. Unfortunately, we only had about 18 people at the open house, but we tried getting it out there. We blasted. We put out about 200 door knockers. And also had it on the website. But so yeah, and here we are tonight for second reading.
Thank you. Any questions for Engineer Doles? No? Online, any questions, Trustee Hammer, Trustee Wall? No? Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing, the second reading of public hearing. Is there anybody in the room who would like to speak to ordinance 1165 tonight? Look like it. Anybody online like to speak to ordinance 1165 tonight? Okay, then I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-1165, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, redacting and replacing chapter 18, article 15 of the Lyons Municipal Code regarding flood damage prevention.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Trustee Wall, Trustee Hammer?
Nope.
No discussion. Okay, I will then call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, everybody. Next up, we have the first reading of ordinance 1167, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the Tebow annexation application located at 4545 to 4559 Union Highway and 4602 Highland Drive. Who would like to take the staff report on that?
Yeah, so staff's requesting DOT move forward with second reading and schedule a public hearing. Keep the staff report light. We will be taking this in front of the PCDC on the 12th of this month. They will hold a public hearing for the zoning designation. They will not hold a public hearing for the annexation. They will be providing input in a resolution for guidance through the PCDC's recommendation. We have sent all referrals out to agencies, neighbor notices, all of that is in the works as well. We'll be drafting development agreement to send to the applicant, so this week. So all of the parts that should be moving are moving. And you all have a much more robust analysis of the packet from a staff perspective and all of the BCDC and referral agencies input upon second reading if you so choose.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Planner Bo? Any questions online?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, I just have a question on the annexation application. I'm looking at it and it says under the project information, number of proposed residential lots is 0. Number of proposed commercial lots is 2. But I thought this annexation involved one property that was to be zoned R3. So wouldn't that be the residential lot?
I had the same question, Trustee Lowe.
Yeah, so it's been requested by, and that might just be a residual error from I can clear that up with the applicant. It is their desire to zone the front parcel facing the highway commercial and zone the back lot as R3. That is, that's in their narrative. That's the at least the annexation, draft annexation map that they provided. That's what was provided. They will, and I should have noted, there's no immediate development plans for this parcel. They did submit, I don't want to use the word concept plan because that's called out within our code. It's something that's required if you're moving forward with development, but they do have an idea of what they want to do, but they have no firm leases nor kind of avenues towards moving forward. So it is likely that they will have to come back once they do go towards a development plan. They'll have to they'll have to do a lot line adjustment dependent, but that's a future process. But I can clear that question up for a second. Yeah.
So then the application is incorrect?
I don't think this is necessarily incorrect because it could be the way they draft it could be there are no currently proposed residential units. That's why it's 0 or residential lots, just be zoned that way. The zoning is different, of course, than the development of that property. So that could be, I think we just need to clear it up.
Yeah.
But all we're doing here tonight is just setting a public hearing. You'll have findings of fact in a resolution and an ordinance on second reading. I mean, really, it's the resolution of findings of facts where all is this application sufficient or not is determined.
Yeah, and I think where you're seeing the 2 commercial lots is in our original discussions with the applicant, they wanted to have, it was the desire to have a gas station on one lot and then a Ziggy's Plaza on another. I think it's just a residual, that they didn't have that plan moving forward. It just wasn't.
All right, I'll accept that. I'll accept that. That's thanks for the explanation.
Any other questions? I would entertain a motion.
Move the adoption on the first reading of ordinance 1167, annexing property known as the Tebow property at 4559 U Highway and 4602 Highland Drive in the town of Lyons.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Trustee Hamrick?
No, I don't have anything.
No, nor do I.
Mayor Pro Tem?
No.
Trustee Brennan?
Real quick on first reading, I did want to commend the staff, town attorney, for including section 4 in this, in case members of the public are looking at this before second reading, which expressly disclaims any obligation of the town to provide utilities, streets, or other services. At this point, we're not obligated to do that, even if we go forward with this in second reading.
Trustee Dillman?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just add that this is something that the town of Lyons has been waiting for a very long time. And I know that it's been in discussion for a very long time with Mr. Tebow and his group. And I also want to commend staff for the completeness of this. And I am going to happily vote yes. So with that, I'll call the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously.
All right, moving right along to consent agenda. Clerk Vasquez, are you able to read consent agenda into the record?
Yep, I sure will do my best.
Okay, thank you.
Resolution 2024-64, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, accepting the 2023 annual financial statements and federal awards report in accordance with the uniform guidance. Item 2 is Resolution 2024-65, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving a contract with the United States Department of Energy, Western Area Power Administration, Rocky Mountain Region, Loveland Area Projects, and the Municipal Energy Agency of Nebraska for purchasing and scheduling agent services. Item 3 is Resolution 2024-66, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving a crossing agreement with Rough and Ready Irrigating Ditch Company. Item 4 is Resolution 2024-67, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving a crossing agreement with Palmerton Consolidated Ditch Company. Item 5 is Resolution 2024-68, a resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving a professional services agreement with Charles Abbott Associates Incorporated for building services. Item 6 is Resolution 2024-69, resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, awarding a construction agreement to TFW Construction LLC for PRV4 upgrades, project number 24-PRV4-01, rebid number 1. Item 7 is Resolution 2024-70, resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, awarding and approving a professional services agreement with Mead and Hunt Incorporated for Comprehensive Safety Action Plan Project 24-Safety Plan-01. Item 8 is Resolution 2024-71, resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, extending the Boulder County Development Plan Intergovernmental Agreement Task Force. Item 9 are the July 15th, 2024 regular Board of Trustees meeting minutes. Item 10 are the August 1st, 2024 special Board of Trustees meeting minutes. And item 11 are the August accounts paid.
Thank you very much. All right, yes. Attorney?
Yeah, on the accounts payable, that also included the July accounts payable. Can it be the July and August accounts payable as part of the approval resolution? Yeah. So
That's fine with me. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anything anyone would like to pull from consent tonight? Trustee Lowe.
Yeah, I'd like to pull item 7.
Okay. Anything anyone else would like to pull tonight? We'll vote on consent as amended.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Trustee Lowe, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just, I couldn't let this pass. I just need to know what the impetus for this safety study is. What's the reason?
Attorney- Yes, Administrator Simonson.
Actually, I'm gonna kick this over to Engineer Doles.
Okay. Engineer Doles?
I was trying to mute.
Oh,
You get me at the-
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Sorry, Justin.
Oh, okay. Thought I was forgetting how to push buttons. So yeah, this was a grant that was applied for last year and awarded to the town. It's part of the FHWA Safe Streets for All. And so yeah, the grant agreement was finalized this spring, and this is just awarding it to an engineering firm to do the safety study that was part of that grant. The idea is to look at the town as a whole with a few of the hot spots, such as 5th and Broadway, to see what their recommendations and put together a plan. And ultimately, you have to have this plan if you want to apply for further funding through Safe Streets for All for construction.
Thank you.
So
Administrator Simonson, anything you'd like to add?
Again, I think it's like so many of our plans. In order to get funding for construction, you have to have a plan in place. And many of our funders, I use DOLA for an example. If we get an energy mineral grant, they want it done in the next year. So you have to have the plan done. So this is another one of those that if we want future federal funding for Safe Streets for All, whether it's sidewalks or streets or stoplights or a roundabout or any of those things, you have to have this plan in place or you're not even eligible for the funding.
Thank you.
It's how federal funds work.
Trustee Law?
Yeah, so, you know, my head is spinning because I'm looking at all the studies and assessments that we've had recently. We talked about the sidewalk grant that we could get for some $4.2 million. We voted on Stantec for their area-wide plan not too long ago, which includes pedestrian and bike infrastructure. You know, we had a pavement assessment done. We had back in January of 2020, I think we had the pavement assessment done, which of course folds into both bike, pedestrian, and vehicular traffic. I'm just trying to wrap my head around why we're doing yet another study. And further, if this study is necessary for the Safe Streets grants that we may receive, how does that Safe Streets fold into any of these other plans, like the sidewalk plan that we voted on a couple months ago? What does that do for us? Does it link into any of those other assessments and plans that we've done?
The sidewalk assessment was separate, and that was based on the previous board's priority of wanting to have walkability be a priority. So to make that a priority, we had an assessment of the current conditions. I think we've been very fortunate, pretty far, most of our plans have been paid for by others. This one, it was not very specific in the finance piece. This is 100% reimbursed by the grantor. There's no town match at all. But this one, I think, is really meeting the need of what we hear from the public every week, which is the unsafe conditions out by Circle K, the unsafe conditions at Fifth and Broadway, the unsafe conditions people perceive at Third and Main. And so this one is a whole different perspective purely on like in bikes, not having bike lanes in portions of town. So this one will do a full safety assessment of the transportation corridors in town and will help us prioritize which will have the most impact and then how to fund them. But it is this one, we have never done one like this. I mean, this doesn't connect. I mean, they all connect to make one big picture, but we have not had a safety study of transportation.
Thank you. Anything else?
Okay. Okay, I kind of understand it. I just I'm wondering if this isn't redundant with some of the other stuff that we've already approved, but I'll accept your explanation for it.
Thank you. Trustee Lowe, would you like to make a motion then?
Let me see if I can find it. Hold on just a second. Yeah, I move to approve resolution 2024-70, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, awarding and approving a professional services agreement for a comprehensive safety action plan with Mead and Hunt, Inc.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I won't go long on this, but I share some of Trustee Old's questions about this, and this thing includes in some of the scope of work, steering committees and stakeholder interviews and surveys. Even when something like this doesn't cost the town of Lyons out of pocket anything except maybe some staff time, which is real money. I think we're nearing, we haven't reached the point of almost study and plan burnout. And I think it can affect both staff when they spend all their time working on studies, even though they don't cost us any out-of-pocket money, and I think the public as well. At some point, we have so many studies about so many things that you sometimes lose focus on. Why aren't we paving Second Avenue? Why aren't we doing in this? Why aren't the sidewalks in the elementary school area getting done? But we're doing another study that we can seek future funding for. Maybe we have to do that to get the funds, but I just think we sometimes overdo on the studies and less and don't do enough on the ground actual projects. But you know, if this is what it's going to take to get money for the sidewalks, then that's what we do. I'll vote in favor of it, but I think we're reaching a point where we have so many studies and grants for so many things, you almost get lost in the fog sometimes.
Thank you. And yeah, I agree, there's a lot of studies. And I think having the studies on the shelves when the grants come in is what the grant possibilities come in, makes us more likely to get those grants. And so this, as far as I understand it, this is the first step that is a necessary step for us to take in order to get the money to do the work. So I'll be voting in favor. Go ahead.
And I think it's good, we'll finally maybe have some true data on some of these safety points that people perceive as really dangerous. And whether or not they really are, or, you know, it's kind of like the parking issue. Some people perceive they have a parking issue and other people say there's plenty. So, you know, if we can get some outside data, I think that would be good for all of us. And in all of these federal funds, they're always looking for small towns to be represented as well. And so when we have these ready to go, it really does give us a step up.
And maybe CDOT will listen to us.
Yeah.
If we have data.
That's true.
Yeah.
About slow signs. And,
About slow
yeah.
signs and their dangerous crossings and all of those things. So, don't dash my dreams. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to boards and commissions. I am extremely excited tonight to make 2 appointments to the PCDC. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were going to just say 2 appointments. I was like, it actually came in.
I
today.
know. 2 appointments to the PCDC, which is Julie Jacobs and Jen Wingard. So I think that those would be fantastic additions to the commission. And Sarah Neustadel, I hope I pronounced that right, to Historic Preservation Commission. Okay, terrific. All right, we'll move on to general business, discussion direction for review of quotes obtained by Spirit Hound for storage building modification. Who is taking the staff report on that?
Tracy.
Evening.
Step.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, it just said that the host isn't allowing participants to unmute themselves, so I wasn't sure. Okay, evening, everybody. Just a quick update with Spirit Hounds. Per their lease agreement, they were to modify the storage building that is in town right of way, but it's part of their lease agreement that they can utilize that building, but we agreed that they would basically cut that building in half to allow for the trail to go behind that building. And part of that, in that agreement, they were to bring us 3 bids for the modification. So they did send over the 3 bids and a letter. And they do recommend that we take the lowest bid. However, it is putting with the construction modification of the building and the engineering that needed to be done for a building permit and other costs such as excavating and some concrete flat work, it's putting them $15,000 over the allowable budget that the town approved, which was 20,000. So that's putting them up over 35,000 for total building modification. So I think twofold, they're asking for approval of them moving forward with that low bid. But they're also requesting additional 15,000 to complete the building modification. So I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Lucy? Yeah. Evening.
Good evening, Neil Sullivan, 7 Eagle Nest Lane, Lyons. Here on behalf of Spirit Hound Distillers, I'm one of the founding members. Thank you for making time on the agenda tonight for this. This is the first time that we have had the opportunity to provide an update on this project that I think is going well and still good news on time. The updates include the bids that you've heard about from Tracy Sanders. We feel very good that these are local bids and local contractors. Quite happy about that, and folks, in fact, that we are recommending that you move forward with or allow us to move forward with are individuals and a contractor that we've done work with at this location as well as other locations. The challenge is that the bids, even excluding subcontractors, are over the initial amount that was allocated for the project. Keep in mind, please, that that amount was rather a dart, a guess at what it might take. The number was really not based on any actual estimates or any construction input. It was in good faith that we thought that the work that was being discussed could get done in the $20,000 range. So where we sit today is, again, we're on track. We're using a local contractor ideally, and we don't have enough funds to cover the full scope of the project. And I'll last just add, this contractor is very clever and efficient and effective at reusing materials that are actually on the building. We're bringing in very few new materials, only those that the structural engineer required based on the reformatting of the building, because a pitched building uses itself to right itself and provide the structural integrity it needs. If you bring that building into a half format, you now need additional structure inside as well as beams that didn't exist before down the length of the building. So there's a couple pieces, 3 in particular, that we're bringing in that are new. Then when we restructure the back of the building, we're actually using roofing material that exists today to reformat that into the back wall. So I think we're being as efficient as we can. I think the request is reasonable. I understand budgets are tight, but if you've been involved in any construction projects in the last 10 years, construction costs and materials are questions for me.
Any questions for Mr. Sullivan? I think so. Thank you for staying up late with us once again.
Thank you so much. I'll stick around.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you like to kick off the discussion?
No, I would not.
Okay. Trustee Lowe, would you like to kick off the discussion?
I do not have any questions.
We're in discussion now, so this is discussion direction to staff.
All right, okay, so here's my only point. It says a not to exceed $20,000. That was the agreement. I say it's no more, I say we pay no more than the $20,000 we agreed to.
Trustee Hamrick, your thoughts?
Can someone, well, first of all, this project, as I understand, is on a pretty tight timeline, and it's important to the town. I'm trying to recall from what the agreement was. Was it, as Trustee Lowell said, because I heard Mr. Sullivan say that was just an estimate, and I get it. When you're trying to swag some costs, it's just a rough estimate. So I don't recall what the agreement is. The town's picking up all the construction costs, or what was specified in the lease.
Victoria, would you like to address that?
Tracy can too. Yeah, it is actually on the staff memo, what was agreed to. And I don't necessarily know that I agree that it was just an estimate of what it was actually gonna cost. I think it was really quite an intentional discussion by the board that they felt they could contribute $20,000 toward this project at that time. If the board chooses to contribute more, we'll need to amend the contract. Yep.
I can read the language if you want me to.
That might be helpful. That'll be helpful.
Yeah, so the last part of section 6.5, upon 60 days of receipt of a written invoice, the lessor shall pay the lessee all reasonably incurred modification expenses not to exceed $20,000.
Thank you.
Trustee Browning?
I agree. The deal that's made was clear to me, for reading the lease. I have and I think, that language in the contract makes it clear that the risk of construction costs exceeding $20,000 was to be borne by the lessee. That's what the not to exceed language means to me. And I would have a suggestion, if there's a cash flow problem in coming up with the additional 15,000. Fortunately, the town of Lyons has business loan programs available that the last time I checked, the loan terms were 2 years interest-free, and then a very reasonable rate of interest thereafter in a 10-year loan repayment term. So there's a town provided readily available source of funds to bridge that gap. And I don't think we should bridge it with taxpayer money, which is essentially a grant. But we can use the funds that they're not taxpayer funds and those loan funds to provide that assistance to a local business.
Trustee Donna?
Nothing to say.
Any opinion?
I guess I'm leaning towards the town should not be paying more than 20,000.
So I was going back and looking, when I was looking at this weekend, on why we settled on 20, beginning and intended to dig more deeply into it. And I did not do my due diligence. Everything else that happened, I did not get far enough back in to take a look at it. And so I am remiss in not having done that. To me, the terms of the contract are quite clear. And I don't think that we have any recourse except to follow the terms of the contract as established, unless we were to take a look at a new request. You know, is there possibility of the revolving fund, 2 years interest free? What are the possibilities with TIF money? But this is an early renewal setting. But it seems to me that we likely do not have any recourse except to say we're sticking with the decision.
Trustee Hamrick?
Yeah, after rereading this and hearing Trustee Williams and Trustee Browning, I agree. The terms of the conditions are pretty clear.
Tracy, Victoria tells me that you may have something to add.
She may remember why we settled.
You may, I mean, my recollection is we settled on 20 because that's what the board was willing to contribute to.
See, that's what sticks in my mind, but I can't find it.
Yeah. Tracy, do you have a recollection?
No, I just, earlier when they asked what was in the agreement, I was gonna answer that, but it is in the memo. But we also, in the agreement, it says the board has to approve the bid, proposed bid, so I think there's twofold here. We need approval or direction on the lowest bid, and then, yeah, the additional 15,000 request.
Thank you. Well, I'm fine with the suggested contractor and the suggested bid. I think, I appreciate the effort in keeping it local and using materials. I also believe that, you know, the $20,000 is what the board was willing to contribute. I think Trustee Browning's idea of the revolving loan fund is a great one. So that would be my stance too. So I know that's not what you wanted to hear. But I think the direction to the board is clear. If other trustees would like to weigh in on the choice of contractor.
So I agree. No problem with that.
Trustee Hamrick?
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Trustee Wall? Yeah, so thumbs up from Trustee Wall. Okay. Great, so I think we have your direction. And if there's another solution that you want to propose, you know, we'd be absolutely open to continue conversations about that. Okay. Okay. All right. Next up is discussion, direction to staff on potential ballot issues and participating in the general election. And this item is to ask whether there are any additional ballot issues that the board would like to consider for the November election. Anybody have anything they would like to propose? Trustee Hamrick? No? Okay. You're off the hook.
What's the deadline?
Soon.
The next meeting.
Yeah, as soon as possible.
Okay.
Meeting at the latest.
Yeah. Do you have an idea, Trustee Hamrick?
No, I don't. I just.
Okay. All right. Okay, we'll move on to trustee reports and requests for future agenda items. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to kick us off?
The Historic Preservation Committee met and are presenting to the board their desire and approval after public hearing for the depot to be the very first designated building in the town to receive historic preservation status. We also talked about work that's being done with a couple of tribes, working with Redstone Museum to update everything related to First Nations and Native American issues, particularly as it relates to Arapaho and Cheyenne tribes. And then they did weigh in on where to locate, where they would like to see a station located for the rapid speed electric vehicle chargers. And they were comfortable with the notion of the ramp, if in fact it could be placed on the ramp without hurting the current historic significance of the ramp, such as it may be. And so right there on the spot, I was able to check in with Diane, and she said, no, the ramp would have to be removed. And that it would not, because it could not bear the weight that will be carried by that. But the entire group, except for me, definitely preferred it on that end, in that location. And the criteria that they decided they would look at to determine is whether or not they do think it's a place of historic significance is based on the Department of the Interior, but they also recognize that cost is significant, and so they're open to having this brought back to them. They also understand that they are not a final authority on this in any way, shape, or form. It's just a recommendation. So again, to reiterate that and summarize it, if it could be placed there and the current character of the ramp could be retained, they would like that, particularly if a wraparound on it could be of something related to a train and the original, particularly some kind of a wraparound of the original type of train. That's it for the Historic Preservation Committee, and I have nothing else.
Thank you very much. Mr. Browning?
Neither the Economic Vitality Commission nor the UEB has met since our last meeting. However, there is a UEB meeting Wednesday. And I wanted to bring to the board's attention an item that Chairman Kerr has said he will place on the UEB's agenda on Wednesday in response to some emails that I sent and that Chairman Kerr and Director Kaplan. We had, as we all know, a geyser that erupted on Apple Valley recently. I believe it was a valve out of the old water line rather than the water line itself. But having been on the board for 4 years before, I believe that in the last 4 years or so, it's just from memory, we've had 3 separate types of breaks. A valve once, a couple of times on that line. It's my understanding from prior discussions is that line is more than 50 years old. That one of the more serious breaks we had out there, they discovered the line was sitting on top of old sandstone rock instead of properly bedded. There was a concern at that time that the rest of the line, it was very expensive to dig up and inspect. We haven't done, might be in similar condition. And each time that happens, there's water pressure problems in town. Director Kaplan tells me that they are potentially can be dealt with by shutting off flow to that end of the line. But I'd really like the UEB and the town staff to give this board, an update with some details about that line, because had that geyser erupted 3 days earlier, we lost pressure in the northern part of town and in Eagle Canyon, which was up without water for a while they were under evacuation and a fire risk, people would have freaked out, and legitimately so. So not just for the board's education in terms of budget planning in the future, but for the public's education, I think we need to seriously look at the risk of that old water line. Is that the biggest risk we have in our water system? There may be risks that are worse, but it's something we need to look at, particularly with regard to risk events. And I'm not requesting, and I did request an agenda item on that immediately. I'll withdraw that temporarily, depending on what the UEB and the town staff say, and depending on how immediate a risk and danger that is. I may have a future agenda item on that, but I'll report back at the next meeting what the UEB has to say about that issue.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Trustee John.
So the Parks and Rec did not have a July meeting. And then also at the community orchard, we canceled the event because of the fire, but we did have cream that was donated by Organic Valley and had already made some homemade ice cream. So we went and handed that out and had about 60 to 70 people who came for ice cream. And so we are going to be having an apple cider pressing party September 21st and moving the events that we were going to have to that event.
Oh, great. I'm glad. That was gonna be
September 26th, 12 to 3. Noon to 3.
The ice cream is so good, I'll come back for apple cider.
Oh. All right. Thank you. Trustee Hamrick?
The Sustainable Futures Committee meeting for July was canceled, and our next meeting is this Thursday night, so nothing to report there.
Thank you. Trustee Well.
Yeah, I didn't attend the Ecology Advisory Board meeting in July. I would like to request a future agenda item. I know that Administrator Simonson had put on our agenda maybe a couple meetings ago about the rezoning on the Keith Bell lot that's currently commercial. We were going to discuss that. I'd like to have that discussion expanded into proper rezoning of all 4 of those Keith Bell lots that were transferred. If we could do that, please.
Yeah, we may have some clarifying questions for you, Trustee Lowell, but.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
All right, so busy week. I want to make everybody aware that Governor Polis is responsible. Governor Polis and our congressional delegation, Senators Bennett and Hickenlooper and Congressman Neguse, are getting 100% reimbursement from FEMA for our expenses. This is a huge deal because we spent, you know, that includes staff time, number one. Things like fuel from the Public Works building. So that's big news. And they have been really working tirelessly to make sure that every community in Colorado that's facing a fire gets the support it needs, not just financially, but in terms of literally getting hot shots in, scoopers, the equipment. So they're talking at a high level. I heard from all of them, and they were all extremely concerned about lions. I invited them all for Glenn's ice cream, no pressure, Glenn. So you know it's tough, and it's and going up to the Alexander Mountain Fire Command Center was devastating. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's devastating, but I'm glad I went, and I am just really grateful that we have such an amazing governor and delegation working on our behalf. We're very, very fortunate. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock is the St. Vrain Valley School District Convocation event. Well, I'm not high school, so I'll be going to that bright and early. So I appreciate this meeting not going until midnight tonight, presumably. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, oh, PCDC didn't meet, didn't have a quorum last time. And we have 2 new members, so things are looking good for next Monday. And then Wednesday night, the Boulder County Consortium of Cities is meeting. It's an online meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. You can attend online. And we're talking about Prop 123 implementation. I am not going to be able to make that meeting. I am looking for a volunteer. I believe it goes from 5:30 until 8. The meetings start and end promptly. They move along. They're always interesting. So anybody would like to volunteer, please let me know. If not, they're recorded and we can watch the recording, but it would be great to have Lions representation there on Wednesday evening. And that is it. So can we please have a summary of action items?
Yes, I have follow-up on the cost of the limb pickup for Trustee Browning. Already did it. Okay. Follow-up on the residential lots and zoning question that they had for the second reading on the T-bill annexation. Ordinance 1165 passed on second reading. Ordinance 1166 passed on second reading. Ordinance 1167 passed to second reading. The direction for the Spirit Hounds' request was to use the select low bidder, and the town will not fund the additional $15,000. And they would like to have an update on the Apple Valley waterline condition after UEB and staff review. And then a potential future agenda item for the rezoning of all 4 Bell lots in LVP. That's all I have is phone.
Fixing the audit report on the 135%. That's that one, and I already sent an ordinance for 166 as corrected, so.
Okay, great. Terrific. All right. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Oh, my, and I didn't send it.
Yeah, you can read it.
Audit.
I move that we move into an executive session being conducted pursuant to CRS 224-6-4024E for the purposes of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations. developing strategy for negotiations and instructing negotiators with concern to development agreement with Lions Properties LLC, and required utility dedications within the development agreement.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
All right,
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody. Clerk Vasquez will send out a link
I'll
and
send
just,
you a new link, trustees.
We take a brief.
yeah, we'll take a bio break while